Welcome to Lifestyle Solopreneur, the community for entrepreneurs who put lifestyle first. Join your host Flavia Barris as she interviews successful lifestyle solopreneurs and shares ideas to help you find the perfect balance between lifestyle, business, and self. Flavia is an attorney, marketing expert, and founder of several online academies. She's been featured in major media including BBC World News, The Wall Street Journal, The New York Post, ESPN Television, and more. Join us for this episode of Lifestyle Solopreneur. Hey, Lifestyle Solopreneurs. I am so excited today to interview Lane Kawaoka. He currently owns 4,000 plus units across the US, and this is real estate units. He lives in Hawaii, recently quit his day job as a professional engineer with an MS in civil engineering and construction management and a BS in industrial engineering. He partners with investors who want to build their real estate portfolio but are too busy to mess with tenants, toilets, and termites by curating opportunities in his Hui Deal Pipeline Club, where his investors have personal access to him and know that Lane is personally putting his own money on the line too. The Hui Deal Pipeline Club has acquired over $355 million of real estate by syndicating over $35 million of private equity since 2016. Lane reverse engineers the wealth building strategies that the rich use to the middle class via the top 50 investing podcast called simplepassivecashflow.com. His mission is to help hardworking professionals get out of the rat race, one free strategy call at a time. Lane, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm a real estate junkie, right? I love real estate, everything about real estate. I'm a real estate lawyer, but also an investor. And my father was a real estate developer. So it's definitely in my blood. Not all of my guests are in real estate. I mean, we have guests on this show in all fields, all kinds of industries. But whenever we have a real estate guest on like you, I get especially excited because I love to talk shop about real estate and all the different ways that people can use real estate to secure their future, to grow their legacy, and just to diversify into a great investment class. So tell us a little bit about, number one, what you do in real estate. You know, what I read your bio, obviously people have kind of an idea of what you do, but in your own words, what does your day-to-day look like? And it sounds like you're no longer an engineer, but fill us in if you're still got any sort of toe in that pool as well.
Yeah, so it's currently, like I said, own over 4,200 units. We operate and manage these. Most of them are apartment buildings today, over 100 units each. So it's a little bit more scalable. We manage property managers, but well over a dozen, almost a couple dozen apartments across mostly the Southeast, mostly in the red states where there's good landlord-friendly laws and where properties cash flow on a month-to-month basis. So I kind of oversee that. The other side of my business is my coaching and consulting side, where I run a accredited only investor mastermind. So for more higher net worth investors looking to build connections with other passive investors there. And that's kind of the two sides of my business. But yeah, it all started back in 2009 when I bought my first rental. That was where I got the bug for cash flow and saw the path out of the rat race.
So tell us how an engineer went from no real estate to your first piece of real estate. Like, what was the spark for you and what was that first transaction like?
Yeah, so I graduated college in 2007. And I think up to that point, call this the linear path, right? You're told to go to school, study hard, get a good job, work a career for 40, 50 years, and maybe retire. I followed that path just like a little lemming and got an engineering degree, started working, and I was really good at saving my money. Initially. So I was able to buy a house up in Seattle for a couple of years after graduating. Again, this is what they tell you, right? This is all financial dogma out there to buy a house to live in. I did that. And because I was never home, I just realized that I should probably just rent it out because I was working on the road all the time for my work. So the rents that I brought in were $2,200 a month and my mortgage was $1,600. And I didn't know anything about rent to value ratios or what made a good rental. At that point, I just realized that I made a pretty good delta between those two. Quite a bit of beer money for a young 20-year-old kid. And that was
your first taste, right?
Yeah, that was the taste of cash flow. And I was like, this is my path out of this crappy job I don't like.
So then, you're an engineer, so you're analytical, you understand numbers. So you're probably like, all right, if I have one property and I'm renting it out for 2200, but my expenses are 1600, you probably did the math real quick. How many properties would I need to replace my current day job? That's
Yeah,
probably where you
yeah.
leapt to next, right?
Yeah, you guessed right. Aren't the engineers very logical and predictable? So I made a spreadsheet. And then the next logical question was, well, how much longer and how much more properties? And that's the answer is somewhere between 10 and 30 properties. And then how quickly can I save up my money to buy the next one?
Right. No, that's great. It's to be strategic. And do you think that's something that's sort of lacking in a lot of people's plan is the strategy, like the forward thinking, what will I do in a year, 2 years, 3 years, and just to kind of figure out all of the interim steps to get to where you want to be?
Yeah, it's either that or, you just don't got any money, right? You can't start a fire just by thinking it's going to happen. You got to start with a spark, right? And in this case, the spark was me being able to save my money, scrounging up 50, 60 grand on a rental property in Seattle, Washington. And, I'm not going to say it's a lot of places that we target today are more Midwestern, Southern states. So, you can buy good $100,000 houses with $20,000 down payments, but you got to start off with the spark, right? If you have money problems, yeah, I can't help you there.
So, would you say that when you started your journey to becoming a real estate investor, you were sort of just your run of the mill, average employee working at a decent job with a good income, but I'm assuming you didn't come into this with like a huge trust fund or some big inheritance, or because a lot of people think you can't get into real estate unless you are already very wealthy, and then you can go into it. But I think it's important to point out that pretty much anyone with a good job, if you save up for a few years, you can break into this industry. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's not, there is definitely a barrier to entry, but real estate investing is something everybody can do. I mean, my parents never did any rental properties. They didn't have a clue how to do this. I just kind of fumbled around it. And I think that's the thing. It's like very logical. Somebody rents out your property for this much. Most people are looking for this type of property to live in. It's something that anybody can kind of do.
And can it be done on the side as sort of a moonlighting or side hustle, or does someone have to dive in full time if they want to get into the real estate game?
Yeah, I mean, I there's all kinds of real estate investing out there. I think predominantly what you see on TV is the HGTV fix and flipping shows where it's high stress. It's very entertaining, but that's definitely not what I do. Right, I'm more on the passive investing side. Most of my clients are hardworking professionals whose highest and best use is at their day job, kicking butt and they're at getting their salary. And I tell most of my passive investors, if you're spending more than a few hours a week doing this stuff, you're probably doing this wrong.
Right. So these investors that do it as on the side and they still have their 9 to 5, or, for some of them, it's what, a 9 to 9 job, right? A lot of hardworking, I'm sure you have lawyers, CPAs, financial planners, doctors, all sorts of professionals that say, hey, I want my money to work for me. And so they go into what I think you've mentioned this, you work quite a bit with syndications. Can you explain what a syndication is for anyone who's not already familiar with those?
Yeah, so syndications are sort of they're special purpose vehicles where a group of people will pull their money together to go buy a larger property. So it could be a 50 unit, 250 unit, 500 unit property. What a lot of people don't realize is the reason why we do this is we get above where the mom and pop investors who are buying single family homes, duplexes, pretty much everything like 40 units and below, right? It's the amateur hour. And a lot of times the lending requirements and the renting terms are the worst in this type of arena. And you're competing with a lot of unsophisticated investors. And when you do that, you overpay because that's just what unsophisticated investors do. So we stay above this threshold of a purchase price of one to a few $1 million. And we stay below institutional grade investments where, this is where the insurance companies or a lot of these Wall Street portfolios will invest. So we stay usually below $20 million purchase price. So there's a nice little sweet spot between a few $1 million and 10 to $20 million where we like to play around in. And this is called the private equity space, where private investors like us can pull our money together to get above average deals, usually about 1 in 1,000 deals meet our criteria, and we can get above average returns. These are basically what you would think of as country club deals, right? Except nobody goes to the country club and plays golf much anymore these days. It's what it is.
And so you're talking about a lot of your clients and people in your mastermind that kept their sort of day job and now they're doing this by investing through your syndications and through your investment funds. But you didn't go that route. So you didn't just stay an engineer and do this sort of on the side. At one point, you kind of waved goodbye to the engineer job. Is that right?
That's correct. I mean, like if you follow my path, like my first 5, 6 years, I was just buying family homes. And I think if you're starting out, especially if your net worth is under $500,000, that's my prescription that I recommend for most people. You need to get your net worth up there. But like many investors, I realize that single family homes are not scalable. Picking up more than 10, 20 properties gets to be out of 10, especially, even if you have a property manager to deal with all your tenants, termites, and toilets for you. And this is where I started to join different mastermind groups and get around higher level investors that were accredited investors, higher $1 million net worth and above, make over $250,000 a year at their day job. And I discovered that this is the way that they invested, and especially for the tax benefits too.
And do you think that for most people, it's sort of a continuum and a journey? And you go from you're just doing your day job, you don't even know this world of real estate exists, then you get your door into the real estate investment world. But do you think most people do start off with maybe house hacking? They, buy a duplex, live in half, and then kind of get their foot in that door and then keep kind of chipping away, growing their real estate portfolio, maybe door by door, until they do get to the level where they're an accredited investor and can participate in sort of these larger investments and pool their funds together with other investors out there so that they can grow faster and, like you said, more passively with fewer issues like tenants and all of that, toilets and termites and maintenance repairs and replacements and shopping for fridges and all of that that goes into it. So do you think that usually people kind of like on a board game, like on Monopoly, there is all of these steps you sort of go through until you get to that higher level?
Exactly, exactly. It's all part of progression, right? You take the population of America. I mean, most people can't save $5,000, $10,000 to save their life, right? We're not talking about those type of folks, but maybe if the guys who make a decent salary over 50 grand a year, of those people, most of them, they got to still grow their money. So maybe house flipping might be their thing, wholesaling homes, right? Or getting paid more at their job. But the people that I work with, they're getting paid more than 80, 100 grand a year at their day job. They're able to put away at least $10 to $20,000 a year to savings or their investments. And for a lot of those people, I think that's what motivates me. Like, there's just so much bad financial advice. I mean, the system is engineered for people to put money into these Wall Street type of assets where it really only makes the Wall Street rich, right? There's all these hidden fees, even though your expense ratio might be 0.005. That ain't counting all the hidden fees in there. And this is where I discovered very early on when my first rental, I mean, I was growing my money at like 30% every year. And then I looked at my stock portfolio, my mutual funds, and my 401k, and I was like, how the heck am I only getting paid like 5, 8% in there? What's the deal? Who took all my money? And it doesn't take much, but once investors start to get on this path, they start to realize that with a little bit of control, you're taking the steering wheel, they can grow their wealth a lot faster and really a lot safer, right? Because they can control what happens.
Definitely. And do you ever have people come to you and say whatever it might be for their salary? Maybe they're making 40,000 a year, maybe 100,000 a year. But do you ever have people come to you and say, "I listen to your podcast, I love what you're doing. I just wish I had savings, but I'm kind of much paycheck to paycheck. It takes my whole paycheck to maintain my current lifestyle, and so I just don't have money put aside." Because I know I run into these people and they can make whatever amount of income, they could be a surgeon making multiple six figures a year, but somehow at the end of the year, they've just got 10 or $20,000 in the bank. And you wonder, where did it all go? And do you ever have to counsel people through that process and how to change their lifestyle so that they can save better?
Yeah, I mean, I try and stay in my lane. I'm not a coaching counseling type of guy. I know when I talk to somebody in San Francisco and they're making 200 grand a year and they're only able to save 20 grand, I'm like, what's up, man? You got to tighten the belt up. There's something going on with your personal finances. And I'm not that type of person. I just tell you, I mean, I look at thousands of financial profiles every year. I know where people should be in line based on hardworking, high paid professionals. I know when something's out of whack, but I'm not the person to kind of get them out of that. There's thousands of other personal finance people on the internet. I focus on getting people from 50 miles an hour going over 200 miles an hour. I don't focus from getting people from 0 to 25.
Well, I love what you said. You're like, "Look, that's not my lane, but if someone's making 200K a year and at the end of the year they've only got 20,000 in savings, something's wrong, man. You gotta make you gotta make a
Yeah,
change." That
it's
might be the
usually
coaching they need. That might
it's
be just what they need to
usually
hear.
typically the like the top few things are like it's a spendthrift spouse, or they're maybe paying for like private school for the kids. Talking to a guy yesterday about that, and or they just go on too many vacations. That's usually the case. But the people that come into my tribe, and usually these guys are like they're pretty good with their money. They're too good with their money, where they put so much. These are the max out their 401k guys, and I'm like, oh goodness, that's just going to get you killed when you put your money in those qualified retirement plans. Don't do that, man. Like, that's not what we do.
Right. You're locking it away.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. So, we love on this show to talk about life balance. Do you consider yourself someone who does have a lot of time outside of your what you would consider your work hours to do other things? And what are some of those hobbies and passions?
I mean, I'll be honest right now, I'm still growing and growing the business and trying to get a lot more units, especially that cash flow day one. But I work maybe 12 hours a day still every single day. But I will say that being outside of the day job, I discovered some realizations of the lifestyle that I was in before when I was stuck in the day to day, working the 9 to 9. I think things have kind of slowed down. Definitely work all the time, but it's at a slower pace where I'm a little bit more aware and conscious of what's happening out in the world. Like, like for example, I work from home. I like to work out in board shorts because I'm here in Hawaii and that's just what I do. That's my what I enjoy. But like sometimes I have to actually go into town and interact with people. And as I'm driving into town, I obviously try and avoid the traffic, but then I see people walking down the streets in their business casual attire for work. And I'm like, man, what a bunch of wasted time this all is, right? People go to work, they're basically trading time for money. And like if they would just get some more investments, and it's not going to be instant, but in 5 to 10 years, get out of the rat race, they can not go to this thing that consumes 8 hours a day, but really takes over 10 to 12 hours a day by the time they drive to work, they get dressed, they put on makeup, do whatever. It takes up a big chunk of their life.
So true. So, what are some of the systems or software apps that you use that you want to sort of endorse or that you think are some great tools to help people be more productive in their lives?
I mean, I just use the basics, Google Drive, email. I think the biggest thing is not really the software of what you're using, but really what are you doing internally? Are you somebody who executes and gets things done? Right? There's so many people that have so many ideas that never get anywhere because they don't execute.
It's so true. And as someone who does work in real estate, one of the reasons I wanted to know what systems and tools you use is I find real estate is very much a you've got to stay organized, a checklist sort of driven industry, especially when you're out there closing deals and, going through due diligence and all of the different steps involved, especially for you when you have lots of different deals going on. I'm sure you have them in different stages. You're out there prospecting, but you're also kicking the tires maybe on a couple of investments. And then once you're in the process of funding the investment and all, there's just so much going on. Do you have a team that handles that for you? Do you keep track of that on your own as well? And what advice do you have for people that have complicated businesses on ways to keep tabs on everything and stay on task?
Yeah, so I definitely do have partners. There are things of this business that I just do not like. I do not like talking to brokers and buttering them up. So I have my partners do that for me. So that's one takeaway is focus, figure out what you're good at and what you don't like and outsource that, whether that's a partner or you pay someone to do. I definitely have VAs to do it. But like I said, a lot of it's just execution. And maybe I learned a lot of this inherently just through my 10 years working as an engineer, as a project manager. I mean, essentially, project management skills are just so important, right? At what would I do in what order, and strategically, how do I get it done? And then getting it done is the last thing.
Well, you've definitely achieved a lot of success. And I love your philosophies on investing. And also, I totally pictured what you said. Sometimes when you're driving along the street, if you really just stop and look at everyone around you and sort of try to feel what their life and their schedule might be like, if you've obtained a degree of freedom in your own life, you really do kind of feel for people that seem to be somewhat trapped and to have their schedules dictated for them by their employer or by the life they've chosen. And it is nice to be able to set your own schedule. I mean, you're saying you're still working hard, you're working 12-hour days, but I'm assuming that if you wanted to, you could cut back, or maybe that's part of your plan for the future in a few years to sort of change that ratio of work time to what you do in the other hours of your day.
Yeah, I do have a choice, but sometimes I compare myself with Tom Brady, not because I'm married to Giselle or anything like that, but he just does what he does and at such a high level that why not? For me, it's the motivation is just racking up the score at this point. And it's easier at this point to execute, right? In the beginning is the hardest part. When you're just buying that first few rental properties, it's a slow and it's a grind. And you don't have the relationships. Real estate's a relationship business. You haven't forged any of those long-term relationships at that point. So at this point, it's kind of easy.
And what words of encouragement would you have for somebody that is not at all in real estate? Maybe they don't even have their own business. They're still just working a day job and they're listening to this episode because there's something that calls to them and they're thinking, hey, maybe there's something else out there, but they have maybe some fear or reluctance to really dig in and pursue these other avenues. What would you say to someone like that to help motivate and inspire them?
Yeah, financial independence is not for everybody. It's only for the worthy, those who go in on an idea and actually execute. If everybody got financial independence, the heck kind of world would we have, right? Nobody would do anything for the most part. So I think, you bring on a lot of guests like myself and everybody has found their path. There's a lot of different paths. I would say, real estate is one of those that you don't need to have any special skills. It's super simple. The barrier to entry is, yeah, you need some money. But once you get that, I think it's one of the best things. The fact that there's a barrier to entry behind you once you get in.
Amazing. So I just want to thank you so much, but I know there's going to be people listening that want to get in touch with you, follow you, listen to your podcast, perhaps even join your mastermind. How can people reach out to learn more about you?
Yeah, they can go to simplepassivecashflow.com, my website, a lot of free information on there. If you're interested in getting your first rental property, the first, I'd say 8 podcasts that I did back in the day, back in 2016, were very tactical. I would say check out those first. But yeah, check out my website. My email is lane@simplepassivecashflow.com. And yeah, you got to decide if this is for you. And if it is, go all in.
Lane, it's been awesome talking to you. I've learned a lot. I think what you do is wonderful. And I know that you're a leader for so many who follow you and have obtained financial freedom and flexibility in their lives because of what you teach. So just keep doing what you're doing. And thank you for being on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast, and if you leave a review on iTunes, I promise I will read every single review. If you know someone who makes a full-time living from part-time work, and maybe this is you, please visit lifestylesolopreneur.com to nominate a guest or to nominate yourself. Because remember this, money doesn't buy happiness. But money in the hands of a happy person, there is no greater tool.
Today's episode was brought to you by the Get Shift Done program. It's a lifestyle-changing online class to help you define your business and lifestyle ambitions and to set goals in a way you've never experienced before. This class will 10x your daily productivity with methods that will blow your mind. And if you use a coupon code podcast, the class tuition is 99% off. Visit GetShiftDone.com to enroll today.